In 2007, Kevin Garnett broke his loyalty to the Timberwolves and was traded to Boston, immediately winning the chip his Hall of Fame talent deserved. In 2019, the Wolves thought Andrew Wiggins was the problem, but he won a chip without them 3 years later. It's time to start wondering, when will Anthony Edwards realize he was drafted to the worst franchise in sports? In March 2021, a Reddit user did the math and found that Minnesota was worse than every other team in North America. The worst team in the NHL, the Arizona Coyotes, with an all-time .480 win percentage. Worse in baseball, the Padres, WNBA, Dallas Wings, NFL, the Tampa Bay Bucks, and the Wolves behind them as the worst of all time. Since then, the percentage has bumped to .402, but that's still dead last. But last season, there was hope. They got the 7th seed and won their second playoff game in 18 years. So to capitalize on that success, they pulled off a huge trade. The worst one in NBA history. But there is a way to fix the Rudy Gobert disaster, because if they don't, Anthony Edwards' all-star career will be severely damaged. It's hard to explain how bad the Gobert trade actually was. They dealt 4 first-round picks, a pick swap, the rights to Walker Kessler, plus Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverley, Jared Vanderbilt, and Leandro Bolmaro. That is basically 6 picks and 3 good role players. Walker Kessler alone couldn't be traded for Gobert right now. Kid ended up being a Rookie of the Year candidate. It was the second largest deal for one player ever. The biggest was the Clippers getting Paul George, and we all know that actually got them Kawhi Leonard too. So you could say the biggest trade ever was for Rudy Gobert. Everyone knew that was a dumb trade, but it's been worse than we could have imagined. The idea was to build on last year's team with a Defensive Player of the Year, but in Minnesota, Gobert has snapped a 3-year All-Star streak, had his first season not all defense since 2016, having career-low stats. What were they thinking? The dude who did this trade is Tim Connolly. He was brought in from Denver to reshape the roster. This man drafted Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Michael Porter. He's supposed to be smart. I guess when you enter the T-Wolves building, your basketball IQ drops like 50 points. If Rudy Gobert isn't an all-world defender, what is he? A good defender who's limited on offense? Who else is like that? Clint Capella, Jared Allen, Jakob Poeltl, Steven Adams? That is who Rudy Gobert is. But the Wolves paid for him like all those players combined. Capella was traded for 2 role players and a 2nd-round pick. Poeltl for 1 role player, 1 first and 2 seconds. But none of those guys are as hated as Rudy Gobert. The Athletic asked current NBA players about other NBA players. Who's the best defender? You would think a 3-time Defensive Player of the Year would get a vote. Drew Holiday, number 1 by a mile. Lou Dort, Brook Lopez, Jaren Jackson. No Gobert. 9 other players received just 1 vote. He didn't even get that. We know he's at least deserving of 1 vote, but players didn't give him that because they don't respect him. A leaked report said when D'Lo was there, he hated him. D'Angelo Russell was very frustrated with Rudy, not being able to catch some passes, missing layups. I'm sure there's other players who had some frustrations as well. You think? Kyle Anderson got punched, but the leaked audio afterward of Kyle was just as crazy.
Oh, the what? Just in there, I've way too much. Don't tell me. Fuck, roll a job. I got it. They're sitting and they this thing.
So since the Wolves have no picks left, their only hope to improve is with a trade. The entire team has literally put up 1 good quarter in 2 games against Denver, except Anthony Edwards. He is clearly who they should build around. Obviously, nobody is going to take Rudy Gobert. The rest of the roster has minimal value to bring back in a trade, except Karl-Anthony Towns. Dude missed a ton of games this year, and they figured out how to play without him. The Wolves' record without Cat this year was 1 game over 500, the exact same as when he played. A big reason was Naz Reid. who proved he can play well next to Gobert. But if Cat plays with Rudy, it really limits his game. I mean, when Towns is the biggest player on the floor, his shooting can break down a defense because a center has to guard him. But matching up with a power forward or a wing makes his shooting a lot less dangerous. Back in 2018, Jimmy Butler told us who Cat really is. We know Jimmy will call out a player who he sees as entitled or doesn't work hard. And he was immediately fed up with Cat and didn't believe he could win with him. Then this year, the craziest thing happened in the play-in. Minnesota traded for Mike Conley to be the vet on this team to show the younger guys how to win. What happened next is like something out of a movie.
That's the kind of attention to detail you gotta have. You can't just go home and play video games. Like, this is the time to do a little extra work. What's good?
He don't have to be. Watch some film.
Wow. Apparently, Cat hasn't learned anything. And in the biggest games, his averages drop from 23 points to 17, a 40% three-point shooter to league average, and one more turnover a night. The only way out of this is to deal karl-Anthony Towns. But even then, I don't have faith in this team. How could I? They're who picked 2 point guards over Steph Curry in the 2009 draft. They picked Wes Johnson over Paul George, DeMarcus Cousins, and Gordon Hayward. What will most likely happen is Anthony Edwards will sign his Supermax extension this offseason. But as long as he secures a player option, he will be tied to Minnesota for a maximum of 7 years, which sounds like a long time to waste, but it's actually normal on bad teams. LeBron spent 7 years in Cleveland before joining the Heat. Same for AD in New Orleans. By that time, Ant will be 26 years old if he gets traded. That is a perfect time to join a contender. Most players are entering their prime at 26 and don't win a chip until 28. Here's a look at some Finals MVP's age at their first chip. Can you believe MJ won 6 rings but didn't get his first until he was 28? LeBron and Steph were 27. Look at what Ant is already doing at 21. In his first ever playoff series, he dropped 25 points last year. Against the Nuggets this year, he dropped 41 points, including this series where he blocked Nikola Jokic on one end, then hit a no-hesitation triple. Unfortunately, though, he was drafted to the worst franchise in sports. They can try to win with Ant in the near future, but if not, he is guaranteed to try somewhere else. But the flip side of all this is Trae Young in Atlanta. I dug in to the rumors that the Hawks might want to get rid of Trae. Check